It's been 30 years and now the Age of Apocalypse has its spiritual successor, the Age of Revelation. And now that we've already had the first issue of Age of Revelation with X-Men Age of Revelation Overture #1 having released just this past week, we're going to be taking a look at the World of Revelation #1, Amazing X-Men #1, Binary #1, Longshots #1, and Laura Kinney Sabretooth #1. And I'm going to tell you whether or not any of these books are worth your time. Let's talk about it.
You can't see me, you Stevie, wondering how I reach more evolutions than Evie and make it look easy.
Okay, so in order to do this, I'm not gonna try and do Age of Revelation like separate videos. That way lies madness. There's too many damn books. And honestly, I don't think every one of these books is worth your time, energy, or your money. Keeping it a buck, I'm sorry. In my old Unk age, I'm embracing my Unk era. I'm gonna tell it to you straight, no chaser. Let's start with the World of Revelation #1. This is gonna be a one-shot that's gonna have 3 different stories in it that you're gonna be following, and they all kind of help flesh out the World of Revelation, as you would probably imagine. And I think, for the most part, does a really good job of it. The initial main story is going to be about the message that Bay the Blood Moon sent in the X-Men Age of Revelation Overture #1 issue. This is the message that she was sending to Apocalypse right before she was killed by Psylocke, and then later the Revelation himself. Now, this is gonna be one of those types of deals where there was a little bit more to the story than what Bay the Blood Moon was giving away. I'm not gonna go through all the finer points of it, but I'm just gonna hit you with the meat and potatoes of what I really kind of wanted to focus on with the story, is that the message did not go directly to Apocalypse. The message went to Charles Xavier. And Charles Xavier is walking the wastelands of Arakko because, as some of you may or may not be familiar, in the wake of the X-Manhunt event, Charles Xavier ran off into the sunset with his bird woman, the former Empress Lilandra of the Shi'ar, after he had resurrected her during that event. Well, he ran off with her, and while technically they got caught up in Imperial shenanigans, I'm not reading Imperial because it just does not interest me whatsoever, so if there's more to the story than that, I could not tell you. But what I can tell you is that Charles Xavier is on Arakko, and he is painfully aware of what's going on Earth, and more importantly, he is working with Apocalypse. He and Apocalypse both are trying to determine what to do about Cypher, because I posited that when all this was going on, that the reason why Bay the Blood Moon was kind of aggro on Cypher, I said it could have been a couple of different things. It could have been that maybe there was something he was doing that she felt was a bridge too far, or maybe he wasn't doing enough. Or maybe he was doing something that was a little bit problematic even to someone who is of Arakko. But the thing that's really important here is that when Charles Xavier reveals what's going on, passes the message on from Bay the Blood Moon in her last moments, when he brings this to Apocalypse's attention, Apocalypse simply says, should we take the harder road? Should we give this child a chance, or should we destroy him now? Now, here's the thing. Initially, before all this, Apocalypse even goes as far as to say that Revelation is taking the lazy path. Once again, kind of going back to what I was talking about with Bay the Blood Moon. Like, what is it about what Revelation is doing that has made her opinion of him change so much that she's willing to go run snitch to Apocalypse? I thought maybe it was because he had designs beyond Earth, and maybe that is the case, but it also seems to be a little bit of the fact that he's going about his way of doing things. It's not on par with what Apocalypse would prefer. He wants Cypher to get his hands dirty, to actually be hands-on. Cypher is basically running this thing on easy mode. He's got the Konami code, the debug code, he's got the Game Shark, and a Game Genie, basically broken the game. And he's got mods. He's got mods on the game too. Like, literally, how much fun could this potentially be? Like, it's almost as if the world has just given itself over to him. And while he hasn't taken full control of the United States the way Apocalypse did during the Age of Apocalypse, he has taken over a very sizable chunk of it. So it does make one wonder, yeah, what is going to be the choice? What is Charles Xavier going to choose? And I think it's safe to assume Charles is probably going to suggest that he and Apocalypse go handle the Revelation. but the trick is going to be how long is it going to take for them to get down there and handle business. One of the other backup stories focuses a bit more on Wiccan and Hulkling, and this all takes place after Cypher has fully thrown himself into the throes of being Revelation and has already implemented the X virus that has wiped out a lot of humanity. Those that were not mutants before either became mutants or they died. And it's stated in this that the reason why Wiccan is pulling up is because of all the deaths that Revelation caused when he unleashed the X virus, namely all of Wiccan and Hulkling's friends, Kate Bishop, Patriot. Well, I don't know if Cassie still goes by Stature or not, because her name has kind of changed a few times, but basically all the Young Avengers supposedly are on ice right now, maybe with the exception of Prodigy, because he technically is a Young Avenger as well, but he was already a mutant. But, you know, it makes one wonder, like, what all is happening there with that. In the case of this, basically Wiccan is trying to unleash the full might of his power and bring down Revelation once and for all, and he damn near almost kind of slick does it, but of course, because Revelation has upgraded his power to where he not just has the ability to understand and read and write every language humanly imaginable, he also has the ability now to control people via language. And we've learned over in the Overture one-shot that Revelation was using lobotomization as, and we technically learned it in the X-Men Age of Revelation, I think 0 issue. We learned it there too, but more specifically, yes, he's using lobotomization as a means of punishment. He says the word Babel and basically removes all ability to speak and understand language from a person's mind. We also see that he uses that term not just for, lobotomizing people, but he also calls the people who are the subject of this Babels. That's basically the whole point of this. But Wiccan is basically destabilized, lobotomized. He can no longer speak. He can no longer do any of the stuff that you would associate with Wiccan. As a matter of fact, because he lacks in his language, he doesn't even really seem to have his magic powers anymore, and basically this kind of leaves Hulkling and Wiccan in a pretty bad place. We also get another story that pops up that is about Franklin Richards. And this one I think is probably gonna rub some people the wrong way, maybe, possibly, I don't know. But Franklin Richards, for those who, God help you, are unfamiliar, he used to be a mutant, but during the Krakoan era and the Dan Slott run of Fantastic Four, that was retconned to where Franklin Richards was never a mutant. He just wanted to be one so bad that his powers, his reality warping abilities allowed him to turn himself into being a mutant. And as you would probably imagine, nobody was happy with this decision. But Franklin, we discover, fell prey to the X virus. And the X virus did something very unexpected, where it was turning people who were humans into mutants or killing them if they did not become a mutant. In this particular instance, Franklin was mutated. However, not with any mutant power that you can really classify. Technically his mutation is his mutant power. He's turned into this weird, Dead Space type of monster, like a necromorph of some type. But he looks like the type of thing that Isaac would have to cut in half and bisect in so many different ways. But yeah, basically what he's trying to do is, while he doesn't have his powers anymore, he's lost those reality warping powers in lieu of this mutation. He's trying to create what is effectively a doomsday book, and he's trying to basically bring together all of Earth's different arts and knowledge and textbooks and crafts and things of that nature, everything that can showcase the history of Earth, so that way in the future, should anyone be able to survive past the Age of Revelation, so that Herbie, the little cute robot that the Fantastic Four keep around, and if you weren't familiar with Herbie, you probably are familiar with him if you've seen Fantastic Four First Steps, that cute little robot is going to be able to help whoever the next civilization is learn about the past and history of humanity, and maybe be able to build something going forward. That's basically what the world of Revelation is. Basically just a way to kind of flesh out everything that has come before. Because when you think about it, this Age Revelation event takes place 10 years into the future from where the current line of X-Men comics are at this moment. So yeah, this is just a way to kind of help tell you what's going on, maybe help you understand a little bit better about what has actually happened. Okay, so World of Revelation, is this a necessary title? I'm gonna say yes for the main story, but really overall, if not for the main story being as integral as it was, I would say this is just filler. Not the bad kind of filler, but just filler. Next up on the list is gonna be Amazing X-Men #1. Now, this is a replacement series for the adjectiveless X-Men series, just regular X-Men by Jed MacKay. This one is a really interesting one because we're kind of following up from the Overture one-shot. We actually learn who did and did not survive Zorn's black hole blast that he unleashed. Well, for one, Magneto we already knew was on ice. We already knew he was taken out. His jersey was retired. He is in the upper room now, or in this case, the white hot room. Maybe he's in the white hot room. We can go with that, right? But no, he is also not the only one. We know that other characters like Forge and Archangel and Zorn, obviously, they're dead as well. When Zorn unleashed that black hole blast, it took him as well. And we know that Wolverine was also destroyed almost entirely, but as I said in the video for Overture #1, that was not going to be the end of Wolverine. However, there was an unexpected consequence of Wolverine being caught in that blast, is that we saw only his arms were really left behind, and we know that Wolverine, he can regenerate from even the smallest parts of himself being left behind. Well, as it turns out, that regeneration undid Revelation's lobotomizing effect that was used on him. It's later stated in the issue that Revelation used those very same lobotomization techniques he's using, as we saw like in the World of Revelation with what he did to Wiccan and what he's been said to have done to Beast in the past as well, in the prior to Scott Summers being brought from the past to the future. Basically what has happened is that he goes back to Revelation, Wolverine, and Wolverine, now no longer having been fully lobotomized, his brain is actually healing because of the regenerative process. Now Revelation has to lobotomize him all over again and remove the humanity that Wolverine has within him that would basically make him the killing machine that we have seen him be in the past. Well, it actually takes a lot to get Wolverine into this state, because even though Revelation has become incredibly powerful now to where he can literally just utter a single word and make someone do what he wants them to do. We even saw in the Overture one-shot that he was able to just simply say, "Die," to Bay the Blood Moon, and she died. Like, he is literally able to just say simple statements and those things come to pass. Very Purple Man in that regard. Only in this particular case, I would say maybe he might be slick a little bit more powerful than the Purple Man, especially when you consider that he has power boosting mutants around him at all times. Case in point, Fabian Cortez, probably one of the most infamous power boosters in the Marvel Comics universe, at least in terms of X-Men characters. And basically when he realizes that his power is not working on Wolverine, that Wolverine is still attempting to try to kill Revelation, he gets Fabian Cortez to boost him up. And even after that, when that doesn't work, he gets Cora of the Burning Heart and Chance, also power boosters. Chance, a character I don't know if some of you are familiar with or not. She was a Joe Duffy, Carrie Gamble creation during the original 1986 series Fallen Angels. Well, she is alive and well in this universe, and she is a power booster as well, specifically for mutants. But like, yeah, that's a whole other story altogether. But basically just know Wolverine being regenerated broke the programming. It has to be reinstated, and even with all the power that Revelation has at his disposal, his ability to just tell people to do what he wants them to do, and even that was not enough, that he needs not one, not two, but 3 power boosting mutants to get him in a position where he can get Wolverine back to being in his Angel of Death programming. Now, there's some other things that are going on here that I think are pretty interesting. There is the stuff that's going on between Beast and Jennifer Starkey. For those who are not familiar, Jennifer Starkey in this, her name is Animalia, but in the main line continuity of things, she has yet to choose a superhero name, and we thought, her and Beast were kind of sweet on each other. Things have been kind of rocky between them as of late prior to this. Well, apparently that has changed over the course of the time, the 10 years that it took to get to this point. Her and Beast did become lovers, but because Beast is the Beast, not of the Age of Revelation, but of the past, because his mind has been transported from the Hank McCoy of the present to the Hank McCoy of the future, he doesn't know any of this. So that's why things are so interesting here. And with Schwarzschild, who was a 3K X-Man, who, for all intents and purposes, was the field leader of the team, didn't really care for the Alaskan X-Men. Well, the reason why he is on the team is because when 3K was accused of creating the X virus, which is kind of funny because technically, that was what they promised to do, is to create the virus that has done all the things it is doing. But because they caught so much smoke and heat from all of that and being accused of it wrongfully, they went to ground and basically left the rest of the world to its own devices. And they also left the 3K X-Men out in the cold. So that's why Schwarzschild is with the Alaskan X-Men, which makes things even more interesting considering he didn't care for them very much, but the circumstances he fell into led for some strange bedfellows. Zorn, having very similar powers to Schwarzschild, he was able to actually help him figure out how to wield his abilities more effectively. And of course, it also kind of puts Schwarzschild in this interesting scenario where he and Cyclops are, they're not bonding, but they are getting to know one another. So maybe over the course of the series, when Cyclops gets back to the present, maybe he will approach Schwarzschild in a very different way. That's something I would like to see, because I actually recently, and I don't want to divert too far, but I did recently have a conversation with Owen of Owen Likes Comics, and one of the things I was talking about with them is that the Age of Apocalypse series had a lot of overarching inspirations on the future of Marvel Comics to come. Like, there were character arcs that we probably never would have gotten. Some of those involving characters like Magneto becoming a good guy, we probably never would have gotten if not for Age of Apocalypse. Yes, Chris Claremont did in fact kind of start that narrative thread very long ago, back in the 80s, but it probably never would have seen the light of day had people not gotten a taste of what a good guy Magneto could look like in AOA. And there's also certain other character arcs, trajectories, costumes, hairstyles, and power sets, all that stuff, and maybe even some status quo shit that never would have come to main continuity if not for how influential Age of Apocalypse was 30 years ago. But to get away from all that, the main meat of this is that they are going to go back to the Westchester mansion because they need to find a teleportation device to get them to Philadelphia to reunite with their allies and be able to take the fight to Revelation. Well, the problem is that when they get there, they encounter Death Dream, a character who you may or may not be familiar with if you are, depending on whether or not you're reading Uncanny X-Men by Gail Simone. Death Dream is a new character. He's one of the outliers that was introduced in that series, and his power is that he can commune with and control the spirits of the dead. He quite literally, when he was born, died at birth and was resurrected within seconds of dying, and that's how his power kicked in so early. And he's still a square bear. He's a bit of an awkward duck. He's a bit of an awkward duck when it comes down to it. None of that's changed even 10 years later, despite him being older and being good and grown. He's still a bit awkward, but he's still the same adorkable Death Dream you probably remember if you're reading that series. And if you're not, I do recommend it. Even though I'm a little down on some of the X-Men stuff, I do think Gale is turning in some pretty good stuff. I think right now, her and Jed, with their respective X-Men books, and even though I think Eve's exceptional X-Men has been a little uneven in some spots, it's still really good. And obviously Marewa with Storm has the best book out of the bunch. But yeah, the entire line is kind of in a weird place, but at least there are some books that I think are holding it down. Now, when you get outside of that and what's going on with Death Dream and the Angel of Death showing up and trying to take them down, what I love about this is how everything kind of brings us to something that was hinted at and teased at in the Age of Revelation 0 issue, and that's Darkchild. We knew that Magic was killed during the 10-year stretch that led up to the rise of power of Revelation, but by the time you get to the end of this issue, you are going to see Darkchild alive and well. And that was something I had really kind of wondered about, because it was very specific language. Magic, yes, she can die, but Darkchild is a separate entity within her. So when they get to where they're trying to go, which ends up not actually being where they're wanting to go, they end up going to, I think it was Rhode Island, Providence, Rhode Island instead. And it's there that they encounter Darkchild, who has a more Sidorak influenced Juggernaut with her, and she also seems to have Psylocke under lock and key, the very same Psylocke, Kanan, who has been working with Cyclops and the Alaskan X-Men and joined Revelation during that 10-year stretch. And we saw in the Overture one-shot that she was one of Revelation's loyal disciples. She was even the one who took down Bay the Blood Moon in that issue. And because of the fact that she had failed and one of Revelation's choristers was assassinated, he made her wear the X as a badge of dishonor. And now the question becomes, what happens with the Amazing X-Men now that they've run into one of their old teammates? Technically not their old teammate, because technically Darkchild's not a teammate, but Magic is. But you get where I'm going with this. Like, yeah, I wonder what's going to happen here, because Darkchild has a very different personality from Magic. She's a very different type of character. Does she want to hurt the Amazing X-Men? Does she want to help them? Is she going to do maybe something in the middle, maybe a little bit of both? Is Magic still in there somewhere? Maybe, possibly. Who knows? The thing is, Darkchild is mercurial, and anytime that she has ever been in control of Illyana's body, it could honestly go either way. And I'm kind of here for it. Is Amazing X-Men something you need to have in your pull list if you want to keep up with Age of Revelation? It's difficult to say anything other than yes. This is basically kind of similar to with Age of Apocalypse, how Amazing X-Men and Astonishing X-Men were the core titles that you needed to read. Like, yeah, you can read Excalibur, yeah, you can read Factor X, yeah, you can read like Gambit and the Externals, but so long as you read both Astonishing and Amazing X-Men, you were good to go. That's kind of what's going to be the case here. I feel like, honestly, I feel like Amazing X-Men as well as Unbreakable X-Men and maybe even Expatriate X-Men, those are going to be the main core books you're going to have to read to really know the main meat and potatoes of everything going on in this series. So yes, Amazing X-Men, it's essential reading. Next up is going to be Binary. Now this is a series that's probably going to rub some people the wrong way, I can tell you off top, because there's two things you're going to have to accept right off the rip, and that is that, one, Jean Grey is dead, and she is not the main character of this series, despite the fact that it is Stephanie Phillips who is writing the series, who under normal circumstances will be writing the Phoenix book. Something has happened to Jean Grey. She has died, and in her death, she chose the one person she could think of humanly possible who would be the best possible host for the Phoenix Force going forward. And you could probably guess, based on the title of this book that's called Binary, that she chose Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers. Now, personally, I don't have a problem with that. That's kind of where I get to the next thing. A lot of people hate Carol Danvers, like they make hating Carol Danvers their whole personality. It's kind of weird and off-putting, and it tells me you don't know anything about the character if that's how you treat Carol Danvers. I'm like, she's a really cool character, really awesome character, and has been for a long time. I think people just don't actually read her comics, so they don't know that, and they just assume because of the Civil War II event that she's a terrible person all the time. It's like, no, she was a terrible person because she was written to be a terrible person just for that event. She is, under normal circumstances, a pretty cool person. And it's kind of funny because I feel like Stephanie was kind of playing into that a little bit with this series. Basically, Carol is in charge of the sanctuary for people, trying to protect them from the X virus, using the power she inherited, not just the Phoenix Force, but also the telepathic and telekinetic abilities that Jean had fused with the Phoenix Force. She now has all of that power on top of the already ridiculous levels of power that Captain Marvel already had. bad. Literally the power of a white star, like, and all that other crazy shit. Like, Carol Danvers is like one of the most OP and busted characters in all of Marvel. But yeah, she was already ridiculously strong. She was practically unkillable before, and now she has the power of an entity that literally dies and rebirths. But also begs the question, how did Jean die? Because technically, if Jean has the ability to come back, she can bring herself back to life. She's done it multiple times, but that's neither here nor there. We're not here to talk about that. Pocket sand. Now, anyway, as much as I enjoy what's going on here with the commentary, the storytelling, the fact that she's trying to run this little town and try and keep them safe, but the people think that she's manipulating them using her telepathic powers, that, you know, is she really holding back the X virus with her telekinesis, which is kind of a stretch, but yeah, it's a comic book, so why are we like questioning this? Pocket sand. But no, I think that it's interesting because it kind of plays on some pandemic era type stuff. Like, there's a point where people are saying, oh, the X virus isn't real, or oh wait, they probably cured it. It's been 10 years. Someone surely has come up with a cure, and, you know, people are saying that she's manipulating them and all this other stuff, but she really legitimately is supposedly trying to keep everybody safe. But there is someone out there who is trying to undermine everything that she is trying to do. And oddly enough, it's Jean Grey. Well, maybe not, actually, because we gotta remember, Jean Grey has a clone out there by the name of Madeline Pryor. This particular character seems to have some magic acumen, so I'm gonna go on a limb and say it's very likely Madeline Pryor who Captain Marvel, or rather in this case, Binary, is gonna have to be dealing with. I don't know if I can actually recommend the series as being essential. I know for me personally, I'm enjoying it on a personal level. I think that's a pretty, you know, interesting book to read, but I'm keeping a buck with you. I don't think this book is essential. I don't think this book is essential for you to be able to keep up with the Age of Revelation. I'm gonna just go ahead and be brutally honest about that. Like I said, this is coming from a guy who is a huge Captain Marvel stan. Like, I love me some Captain Marvel. I am an unironic Carol Danvers super fan, and you're never gonna be able to convince me that she doesn't have value. Now, Longshots, this is a tough one, because, you know, let me go ahead and just say it. This book is played for laughs, as you would imagine. This is a book that, while it's called Longshots, Longshot isn't really a factor in it, the actual character Longshot. This is a series that is actually going to be putting more of its focus on the character Mojo. And not only on Mojo, because, you know, Mojo's always about those ratings. What Mojo is trying to do, he's basically putting on an almost kind of like a Running Man style show. But what he's done is he's actually taken the characters Bishop, he's taken Wonder Man, as well as Rhino and Hellcat and Kraven the Hunter, and he is basically throwing them into a gauntlet that they have to try to survive, and it's all going to be for ratings. And technically, Spiral and Longshot show up at the ass end of the first issue, and they're not really much of a factor in it. I mean, I'm pretty sure maybe they'll play some kind of role into it a little bit later on down the road, maybe in the next couple of issues. But really, this is all about these specific characters. You know, Rhino, who now has, you know, an axe head where his horn used to be. Kraven, who is now bald as a coot. We've also got Wonder Man with a really fuckboy looking haircut, and Hellcat, who looks like she's living her best post-apocalyptic life, and of course Bishop, who now has the Winter Soldier's arm. You know, like, I don't think this book is not meant to be taken seriously. It is literally for the yucks, and honestly, not essential. Kind of similarly with Binary, I feel like if you are interested in these characters, I think it's worth a read. Personally, for me, while I am interested in some of these characters, and I love the writing team of Jonathan Hickman and Jerry Duggan working together to do this and playing it for laughs. I mean, I'm here for that part of it, but I mean, really, if we're keeping it a buck, comics cost money. I don't want to use the term penny pinch, but I mean, if you're just really trying to save the most money humanly possible and only read the things that are just absolutely must reads to keep up with a crossover event, I can't recommend Longshots in good faith, because it's just more stuff going on in the world of the Age of Revelation, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. I enjoyed it. I had a good time with it, but I'll just say this: if you are someone who either A, is not interested in having a good laugh, or B, you don't like fun, or C, you just really want to read the stuff that matters the most, this one's not one of them. Last and most certainly not least is going to be Laura Kinney Sabretooth. Now, I'm gonna keep it a buck with y'all. I've not really been keeping up with the Laura Kinney Sabretooth series that has been running. However, I did kind of read some of it early on, and I did kind of just spoilers be damned, I did kind of dig in on some of the more recent issues just to kind of see like, hey, is there anything here that might kind of tie in? There's nothing. This is just a good jumping on point for Age of Revelation. I'm going to tell you right now, this book is largely focused on Laura Kinney, as the title would suggest. However, characters like Gabby, aka Scout, and Akihiro, aka, I think he's still going by Fang. I don't think he's really going by Dakin or Dakin, whatever the fuck his name was. He's not going by that anymore. I think he's just going by Fang now. But point of the matter is, it's focused on these three characters, and the real meat and potatoes of this is that Laura Kinney, as you probably can already tell by the title, she no longer goes by the name Wolverine. She goes by the name Sabretooth. And this has probably more to do with the fact that she was dating someone, a character by the name of Zane, who I am not familiar with. I actually kind of did some digging to see if maybe I was like misremembering something, but apparently Zane, whoever they are connected to Sabretooth. They are kind of referred to as being a child of Sabretooth, but I'm not familiar with him. I'm not familiar with this character at all. Zane's not a character that brings any bells, so this is very likely something that happened because of Age of Revelation. But whatever the case is, Zane and Laura had a relationship. They also have a child together, and a child by the name of Alex. And this is a child who is not a mutant, but lives amongst other mutants under the rule of the Revelation. And why? It's because Laura didn't throw in her lot with the Amazing X-Men, or even the Unbreakable X-Men, or even the Expatriate X-Men. She threw in her lot with the Revelation, and she lives under the jackboot of mutant supremacy, and largely because she felt that the Revelation was taking care of mutants. Yeah, as well as things where it's like Laura just was like, yeah, okay, fine, whatever, cool, I'm in. And Gabby and Akihiro, they don't want to be a part of any of this, but because of all the stuff that's been going on, the assassination of the chorister in the X-Men Age of Revelation Overture one-shot, because of all that and the promise of future attacks, Laura wants to protect her kid, so she hands over her child Alex to the care of Gabby and Akihiro. Only it's not going to work out exactly the way she thinks it's going to work out, because the Revelation discovers what's happening, and now the Revelation is putting eyes on Gabby and Akihiro, because it kind of seems like, well, yes, Laura thinks that Alex doesn't have any powers, and some of the other characters in her orbit, like Hellion, someone who she was dating during the course of the Laura Kinney Wolverine series just prior to this, and they've had some back and forth during NYX and previous X-Men stuff. Well, as it turns out, while Alex might be human, I think he's only going to be human for so long. He probably very likely is a mutant. He just doesn't know it, and nobody else does either. But whatever the case is, yes, this is why everything is the way it is. Why Laura took up the name Sabretooth in order to honor the person who she lost, Zane, and Zane took up the name to honor the father that he lost, Sabretooth, prior to him. So that's why everything is the way it is. And this is also because Laura has thrown in her lot with Revelation. It's put a rift between Gabby and Akihiro and herself. And now that, Laura is, entrusting her child to them, things are about to get even more weird, because it's believed that Gabby and Akihiro are going to try and run off to Morocco and, try to find some safety there, away from the jackboot of mutant supremacy, especially a mutant supremacy where even mutants aren't necessarily, despite being in power, aren't necessarily safe either. So it does make one wonder, like, what's going to happen there with that. But when Laura realizes that Revelation is not only eyeballing her kid, but more specifically eyeballing her sister and brother, and seemingly wanting to take them out, this is what causes her to act. And the question is going to be, is she going to stick with the side of the Revelation, or is she going to side with her family? What is it that Laura is going to choose in this? And I think the answer is obvious, but the question really, in my opinion, is how far is Laura willing to go to stay under the umbrella of the Revelation, regardless of what that means for her family, but more specifically her child. I'm gonna keep it a buck with you. This series, I don't think it's essential I don't think it's essential reading, but I do think because of the nature of how close it gets you to Revelation, considering Revelation's factoring pretty heavily into the story, I do think it's worth the read. So I'm gonna say kind of essential. Kind essential. There you go. It's kind essential. It's a little essential. Little essential. So yeah, that's the grade on that. And that's all I got for that. If you enjoyed this, if you got any value out of this, I would humbly ask that if you still watching this by this point, if you haven't done so already, hit that like button. It's going to help this channel out tremendously, and it doesn't cost you a dime. Another thing that's not going to cost you a dime, especially if you're watching this on your phone, you're watching on mobile, hit that hype button. There's a little hype button that should be under the video. Click that button. It's going to help recommend this video to even more people, not just people like yourself, but everyone. So it helps expand the reach of this video even more than a like would do. So do both of them, because that tremendously helps. Do a little double tap right there, man. I would appreciate that tremendously. Like I said, doesn't cost you a dime. Another thing that won't cost you a dime, if you're still here and you're enjoying stuff like this, you want to see more videos like this, hit that subscribe button and tap that notification bell. And don't just tap the notification bell, hit all notifications, because if you do like custom or some notifications, it's as good as saying you don't want any notifications. You may as well not even tap the bell at that point. Hit that bell so that way you don't miss out on any of my videos, because I do all kinds of videos about tons of other stuff, and YouTube is really bad about recommending videos that I do that aren't X-Men related. So anyway, do all that, and also let me know what you guys are thinking about the Age of Revelation events so far. Do you agree, disagree with my takes on which of these books are essential or non-essential or kind essential, whatever? Let me know what you think. And until next time, keep it plus ultra in the comments, and we out of here. Peace out.